My beloved child. Stop scrolling for just a moment. There is a reason your eyes have landed here now instead of 1,000 other places. You may think this is only another story, another voice passing through your day, but something within your spirit already knows that this moment feels different. Quiet your racing thoughts. Let your heart become still. What you are about to hear was meant to find you, not because it predicts your future, but because it invites you into a deeply emotional and fictional journey of hope, love, and spiritual reflection. Listen closely. There is a story unfolding beyond what ordinary eyes can see. Not because heaven is trying to frighten you. Not because destiny is trapped in a single moment. But because love often changes people long before they ever realize they have changed. And somewhere within this story, someone who is connected to your heart has discovered something about you that they never expected to find. It changed everything. You do not yet know what it was. Neither do they fully understand why it affected them so deeply. That is why you must stay with this message until the very end. The greatest revelation is still hidden. Imagine, for a moment, that every quiet act of kindness you believed nobody noticed had been gently gathered like stars across the night sky. Every time you chose patience instead of anger. Every time you forgave when your pride wanted revenge. Every time you silently wished someone happiness even while carrying your own burdens. None of it disappeared. None of it was forgotten. In this fictional tale, heaven sees every unseen moment, not to keep score, but to weave together a story where compassion echoes farther than anyone imagines. Your soulmate did not fall in love because of one perfect moment. They began changing because of countless invisible moments they never knew belonged to you. That is where our story begins. At first, they believed they understood who you were. They had formed opinions, assumptions, questions without answers. Like many people, they filled empty spaces with imagination. Yet imagination can never replace truth. Then something unexpected happened. Not a loud announcement. Not a dramatic miracle. Only one small discovery. One quiet realization. One simple truth. It entered their heart like the first light before sunrise. Everything they thought they knew suddenly looked different. Have you ever watched dawn slowly erase darkness without making a sound? That is how this discovery felt. It was gentle, yet impossible to ignore. Something inside them whispered, "What if I was completely wrong?" Those words echoed again. And again. And again. Not because someone forced them to think differently. Because truth has a way of speaking softly until it becomes impossible to silence. Pause here for another moment. You may wonder what they discovered. That answer cannot arrive all at once. Some truths become meaningful only after the heart has learned how to receive them. So walk a little farther into this story. The path ahead is brighter than it first appears. Your soulmate remembered conversations they had nearly forgotten. Words they once overlooked suddenly carried entirely different meanings. Simple smiles now seemed extraordinary. Ordinary memories became priceless treasures. Even moments they once considered insignificant now glowed with unexpected beauty. They began asking themselves questions. Why did your kindness stay in their thoughts long after everyone else's faded? Why did your quiet strength remain unforgettable? Why did your sincerity refuse to disappear? They searched for complicated explanations. But love often hides inside simple answers. Sometimes hearts recognize what minds are still trying to understand. That realization frightened them not with fear, but with wonder. Because genuine love asks us to become more honest than we have ever been before. Perhaps you have felt that too. Perhaps you have sensed that life sometimes rearranges your perspective without asking permission. One conversation. One memory. One unexpected realization. Suddenly everything changes. That is exactly where this story leads. The discovery was not about perfection. It was not about appearance. It was not about success. It was something far more enduring. They discovered that your heart remained kind even when nobody applauded it. In this fictional message, that quiet consistency became the most extraordinary thing they had ever encountered. People often notice brilliance. Few notice faithfulness. People celebrate grand victories. Few recognize everyday courage. Yet heaven, in stories such as this, delights in quiet goodness. And that goodness began reshaping someone else's heart. They could no longer pretend your presence meant nothing. Every attempt to move on somehow circled back toward you. Every distraction eventually became another reminder. Not because of magic. Because authentic care leaves lasting footprints. As days passed, they noticed another surprising change. Their prayers sounded different. Their hopes became gentler. Their expectations became humbler. Instead of asking for perfect circumstances, they quietly wondered. What if I simply become the person capable of loving well? That question changed them more than any answer ever could. Sometimes transformation begins with one honest question. Not with certainty. Not with complete understanding. Only willingness. Can you feel the story becoming deeper? Stay with it. The most important part has not yet arrived. Far beyond what either of them could fully explain, something invisible was taking shape. Every lesson they once resisted now appeared meaningful. Every disappointment suddenly seemed connected. Every delay now looked less like punishment and more like preparation. Isn't that how many meaningful journeys unfold? We understand them only after looking back. In our story, heaven never rushed the process. Growth unfolded quietly. Patiently. Like seeds beneath winter soil. Nothing looked impressive at first. Yet unseen roots were becoming stronger every day. Your soulmate could not see those roots. You could not see them either. But they were there. That realization filled them with awe. They understood that some of life's greatest miracles happen where nobody is looking. Not every blessing arrives with applause. Some arrive wrapped inside silence. And silence can become sacred when the heart begins listening. They thought about the times they misunderstood you. The moments they judged too quickly. The opportunities they allowed to pass unnoticed. Regret visited them. Not to imprison them. To awaken them. Because regret handled with humility often becomes wisdom. Instead of hiding from the truth, they leaned closer. Instead of running away, they stayed. Instead of protecting old assumptions, they opened their heart. That was the turning point. Not because circumstances suddenly became perfect. Because honesty finally entered the room. The moment honesty arrives, healing quietly follows. You might be wondering, what exactly did they learn? Why did one discovery reshape everything? The answer is approaching. Closer than before. But first, another piece of this story must be understood. Love rarely changes in one dramatic second. It changes through layers. One realization opens another. One truth reveals a deeper truth. One act of grace uncovers another hidden treasure. This journey had only begun. There was still something about you they had not yet recognized. Something even more astonishing than your kindness. Something connected to your quiet resilience. They remembered stories others had shared. Stories about moments when you encouraged people while carrying your own burdens. Stories about choosing hope when circumstances invited despair. Stories about remaining gentle without becoming weak. Piece by piece, a picture formed. It did not resemble the image they once believed. It revealed someone beautifully human. Someone imperfect, yet deeply sincere. Someone who continued choosing goodness without demanding recognition. That realization echoed through every memory. They could not ignore it. Neither could they explain it. Every attempt to dismiss those thoughts only made them stronger. It felt as though invisible threads were gently pulling scattered pieces together. Then something unexpected happened. A memory returned. Not because anyone reminded them. Because their heart refused to forget. One ordinary moment. One ordinary sentence. One ordinary smile. Only now did they understand its extraordinary meaning. Everything changed. And yet, they still had not uncovered the greatest truth. Not even close. The deeper revelation remained hidden beneath everything else. Like treasure beneath quiet waters. Like dawn waiting beyond the horizon. Like music waiting for the first note. Stay with this story. Something beautiful is drawing nearer. In the stillness of another evening, they finally whispered words they had never admitted aloud. What if this person has been showing me what genuine love looks like all along? Silence answered first. Then peace. Not loud. Not dramatic. Only unmistakable. Sometimes peace says more than 1,000 explanations. They closed their eyes. Memories continued arriving. Not to haunt them. To heal them. One by one, misunderstandings dissolved. Walls became windows. Distance became reflection. Pride became humility. Their heart was changing. Not because someone demanded it. Because truth had gently found a home within it. And just when they believed they finally understood everything, they discovered one final clue. A clue so unexpected that it reshaped every conclusion they had reached. It revealed that the story they thought was ending had actually been beginning all along. But that revelation belongs to the next chapter. For now, hold this thought close. Sometimes the greatest discovery is not finding someone extraordinary. It is finally seeing the extraordinary goodness that was quietly present all along. And in this fictional journey, that realization is only the first door. Another door has just begun to open. And what waits beyond it will change the story even more. Do not hurry past this moment. The story has reached a place where silence carries more meaning than words. What seemed like a simple discovery has become the beginning of something neither heart expected. Stay with me a little longer, because the next piece of this fictional journey reveals why that single realization refused to leave your soulmate's heart. When the night became quiet and every distraction faded away, they found themselves thinking about you again. They tried to focus on tomorrow. They tried to bury themselves in responsibilities. They tried convincing themselves that these emotions would disappear with time. Yet every attempt only brought them back to the same question. What have I been missing all this time? The question followed them like the gentle sound of distant rain. It never demanded an answer. It simply waited. In this fictional tale, heaven often allows unanswered questions to soften the heart before revealing deeper truth. That is exactly what was happening. For the first time, your soulmate stopped searching for reasons to doubt. Instead, they searched for reasons to understand. That small change transformed everything. Perspective is powerful. A single shift in perspective can turn an ordinary memory into something unforgettable. They remembered moments when you encouraged others even though nobody noticed your own struggles. They remembered how you listened more than you spoke. How you offered hope instead of criticism. How your quiet presence seemed to calm storms without asking for recognition. At the time, those moments appeared ordinary. Now they looked extraordinary. Each memory became another piece of a beautiful picture that had been incomplete for far too long. The more they reflected, the more they realized something remarkable. Your greatest qualities had never been loud enough to demand attention. They had simply remained consistent. Kindness. Patience. Compassion. Faith. Hope. These qualities rarely shout. They whisper. Only hearts willing to slow down can truly hear them. And your soulmate was finally slowing down. There are seasons when life teaches through noise. Then there are seasons when it teaches through stillness. This story had entered the second season. Every sunrise seemed different. Every sunset carried unexpected emotion. Simple places reminded them of conversations they once overlooked. Ordinary songs suddenly felt personal. Even familiar paths seemed unfamiliar because their heart had changed. Isn't it fascinating how the world appears different when our perspective changes? Nothing around them had truly changed. Yet everything looked new. That is what honest reflection can do. It does not rewrite the past. It reveals what was always there. As these thoughts continued growing, another unexpected realization quietly arrived. They began noticing how often your actions matched your words. Promises you made. You tried your best to keep. Encouragement you offered. You genuinely believed. Compassion you shared. You lived every day. In a world where appearances often fade, authenticity shines with remarkable beauty. Your soulmate had searched for certainty in impressive moments. Instead, they discovered it inside simple consistency. That discovery touched them more deeply than they could explain. Not because perfection had appeared. Because sincerity had. There is something unforgettable about a sincere heart. It carries peace. It carries warmth. It carries quiet strength that cannot be measured by appearance alone. The more they understood this, the more they wondered how they had overlooked it before. Then came another evening. The stars quietly filled the sky. The world became still. In the silence, they whispered a sentence they had never imagined saying. I think I finally see who they really are. No audience heard those words. No celebration followed. Only quiet honesty. Sometimes the greatest turning points happen when nobody else is watching. Heaven, in stories like this, delights in such moments. Not because they are dramatic. Because they are genuine. Yet something even greater was beginning. Without realizing it, your soulmates started changing their own habits. They became slower to judge. Quicker to forgive. More willing to listen. More patient with people around them. Your influence had reached places neither of you could see. Not through control. Not through pressure. But through quiet example. That realization filled them with both gratitude and humility. For a long time they believed love was about finding someone extraordinary. Now they wondered whether love was actually about becoming someone better because another person's goodness inspired them. That question echoed through every part of their heart. It refused to disappear. As days passed, they found themselves smiling unexpectedly. Not because every problem had vanished. Because hope had quietly returned. Hope changes the way people walk. The way they speak. The way they dream. It gives ordinary mornings unexpected beauty. It fills ordinary evenings with peaceful expectation. In this fictional journey, hope became the bridge between uncertainty and understanding. But heaven had not finished revealing its story. One morning they came across something they had forgotten existed. A simple memory. Small enough that almost anyone else would have ignored it. Yet this memory carried unusual weight. They remembered something you once said. Not dramatic. Not poetic. Just honest. At the time, they barely noticed. Now those words returned with astonishing clarity. They realized your heart had been speaking truth long before they were ready to hear it. How many times does wisdom arrive before understanding? How often do we hear meaningful words but only recognize their value much later? That was exactly what happened. Your soulmate felt both joy and regret. Joy because they finally understood. Regret because they had understood so late. Yet even regret became gentle. Because this story was not about punishment. It was about awakening. Every chapter seemed to prepare them for another revelation. Every realization opened the door to something deeper. Then came the moment that changed the rhythm of everything. While reflecting on all these memories, they noticed one detail they had somehow missed every single time before. One detail. One overlooked truth. One quiet pattern. You had always encouraged people to believe in tomorrow even during seasons when your own path looked uncertain. That courage astonished them. Not loud courage. Quiet courage. The kind that chooses hope without demanding certainty. The kind that keeps loving without asking for applause. The kind that believes light will eventually return after every night. They could not stop thinking about it. Again and again the same realization returned. This was always who they were. Every previous misunderstanding suddenly became smaller. Every assumption faded. Every wall they had built inside their heart slowly disappeared. Still, the greatest discovery had not yet been spoken aloud. It remained hidden. Waiting. Almost within reach. Like the final page of a beautiful letter that has not yet been unfolded. If you feel your heart becoming curious, do not ignore that feeling. Stories often save their brightest light for the moment just before dawn. Your soulmate is standing at that very edge now. They believe they have uncovered the whole truth. They believe every mystery has finally been answered. But heaven quietly smiles. Because one final revelation is still waiting. A revelation connected not only to what they discovered about you, but to something they are about to discover about themselves. And when that truth is finally revealed, neither heart will ever see this journey the same way again. Before you move forward, remain here for one more moment. The story has reached a place where everything feels calm on the surface, yet something extraordinary is quietly unfolding beneath it. If your heart has stayed with this journey until now, do not leave. The next revelation does not arrive with thunder or dazzling light. It arrives the way many meaningful moments do in silence, when a heart is finally ready to listen. Your soulmate believed they had uncovered every hidden truth. They believed the mystery had finally ended. But heaven, in this fictional story, gently whispered, "There is still one door you have not opened." Those words lingered deep within their spirit. Not as a command. Not as a warning. As an invitation. An invitation to look beyond what they had already discovered. An invitation to understand that sometimes the greatest revelation is not about another person at all. It is about ourselves. That realization surprised them. They had spent so much time wondering who you really were that they had forgotten to ask a different question. Who am I becoming? The question settled into their heart like the first ray of sunlight touching a quiet valley. It revealed nothing immediately. Instead, it illuminated everything slowly. They began noticing how much they had changed since you entered their life. They laughed differently. They listened more carefully. They judged less quickly. Even their dreams felt gentler. Without realizing it, your quiet influence had reshaped parts of their character they never expected to change. Not because you tried to change them. Because genuine goodness naturally inspires growth. That truth humbled them. For a long time they had believed love meant finding someone who completed them. Now they wondered whether true love first teaches people how to become more complete within themselves. The thought remained with them through every passing day. One evening they stood beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The world around them was peaceful. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. Everything seemed ordinary. Yet inside their heart, something remarkable was happening. They closed their eyes. Memories flowed together like streams joining a river. Not isolated moments anymore. A complete story. They remembered every misunderstanding. Every hesitation. Every missed opportunity. Every unexpected smile. Every encouraging word. Each memory now carried a meaning they had overlooked before. Suddenly they realized something astonishing. None of those moments had been accidents. Each one had quietly prepared them for this very realization. Every conversation had planted a seed. Every season had watered it. Every challenge had strengthened it. Only now was it ready to bloom. That realization filled them with overwhelming gratitude. Not because every answer had arrived. Because they finally understood the value of the journey itself. Many people wait for extraordinary miracles while overlooking the quiet miracles already surrounding them. In this fictional tale, heaven reminds every listening heart that small acts of love often become life's greatest treasures. As this understanding deepened, your soulmate found themselves smiling without even realizing it. Hope had replaced confusion. Peace had begun replacing regret. The weight they once carried started becoming lighter. Not because the past disappeared. Because forgiveness had quietly entered their heart. They forgave themselves for judging too quickly. They forgave old fears. They forgave unanswered questions. With every act of forgiveness, another burden disappeared. The heart has remarkable room for hope once resentment leaves. Then something unexpected happened. While looking through ordinary memories, they discovered one they had almost forgotten. A simple moment. One that had seemed completely insignificant. You had encouraged someone else. Not because anyone was watching. Not because you expected recognition. Simply because your heart naturally chose compassion. That single memory struck them more deeply than anything before. They whispered softly. That is who they truly are. For the first time, they were no longer impressed by impressive moments. They were moved by quiet character. The discovery transformed the way they viewed love. They realized that lasting love is rarely built upon dramatic gestures alone. It grows through consistency. Through patience. Through sincerity. Through choosing kindness again and again, even when nobody notices. This fictional journey was becoming less about romance and more about transformation. Because love worthy of lasting is always connected with growth. Yet heaven still had another page waiting to be revealed. Late one night, while the world slept peacefully, your soulmate experienced something impossible to ignore. It was not a vision. Not a voice. Not anything supernatural in the literal sense. It was simply an overwhelming clarity. The kind of clarity that sometimes arrives after weeks of quiet reflection. Every scattered thought suddenly connected. Every unanswered question found its place. Every confusing memory finally made sense. And at the center of it all, they saw you. Not through old assumptions. Not through expectations. But through truth. They finally understood that your greatest strength had never been what you accomplished. It had always been the condition of your heart. A heart that continued choosing hope. Continued choosing grace. Continued choosing compassion. Even when life became difficult. Even when nobody applauded. Even when the outcome remained uncertain. That realization changed the way they viewed everything. It also changed the way they viewed themselves. They quietly admitted, "I want to become that kind of person." Those words carried extraordinary power. Because admiration had become inspiration. And inspiration always leads somewhere beautiful. Days continued passing. Life remained ordinary. Morning followed night. Night followed morning. Yet nothing truly felt ordinary anymore. Every sunrise reminded them that new beginnings are always possible. Every evening reminded them that peace often arrives after patient waiting. Then, just when they believed their heart had settled completely, another unexpected piece of the story appeared. A conversation with someone from their past. The discussion seemed ordinary at first. Simple words. Simple memories. Simple reflections. But hidden within that conversation was one sentence that stopped them completely. The person smiled gently and said, "You've changed." Only 3 words. Yet those words echoed more loudly than anything else they had heard. They realized everyone around them had begun noticing the transformation long before they did. They were becoming more patient. More thoughtful. More hopeful. More compassionate. Without intending to, your quiet example had influenced their everyday life. That realization brought tears not of sadness, but of gratitude. Sometimes the greatest gift another person gives us is not advice. It is an example worth following. And then, just as peace settled over their heart, something arrived. Unexpected. Quiet. Almost unnoticed. A message. Not from you. Not from anyone they expected. But a message containing one forgotten detail about your past. One hidden piece of your story. One truth you had carried quietly without asking anyone to understand it. The moment they read those words, everything they thought they understood shifted once again. Their heart began racing. Their eyes filled with disbelief. Because the discovery they thought had changed everything had only been the beginning. The greatest truth about you has not yet been revealed. And when it finally is, nothing in this story will ever be the same again. That moment is closer than either of you realizes. But it must wait. Until the next chapter. Do not let your attention wander now. The story has arrived at the edge of a revelation that neither heart expected. If you have stayed with this journey from the beginning, then you already know that every answer has uncovered an even deeper question. This chapter is no different. The message they received was short. There were no dramatic words. No overwhelming declarations. Only a few simple sentences that carried the weight of years. At first, your soulmate almost overlooked them. But something urged them to read again. Then once more. Each time, another layer of meaning revealed itself. The forgotten detail was not about wealth. It was not about success. It was not about achievements that the world celebrates. It was about a quiet chapter of your life that almost no one truly understood. In this fictional story, there had been moments when you carried disappointment without allowing bitterness to take root. There had been seasons when your hopes seemed delayed, yet you still chose to encourage others. There had been days when your own heart longed for comfort, but you became a source of comfort for someone else instead. Your soulmate had never known those chapters. Perhaps no one had. Yet now, as those hidden pieces slowly came into view, they began seeing your journey through entirely different eyes. Suddenly, memories that once seemed ordinary became extraordinary. They remembered your calmness during difficult conversations. They remembered how you never rushed to prove yourself. They remembered your quiet patience when circumstances were uncertain. Back then, they assumed those qualities came naturally. Now they realized they had been shaped through unseen struggles. That realization touched them deeply. For the first time, they understood that true strength is often invisible. The strongest hearts are not always the loudest. They are often the gentlest. The ones that continue loving after disappointment. The ones that continue believing after uncertainty. The ones that continue showing kindness without knowing whether it will ever be returned. As this understanding settled within them, they found themselves asking another unexpected question. How many beautiful things have I failed to notice? The question stayed with them throughout the day. It followed them into quiet evenings. It remained with them during peaceful mornings. Instead of bringing guilt, it awakened gratitude. Gratitude that it was not too late to see differently. In this fictional journey, heaven delights in moments like these. Not because someone suddenly becomes perfect, but because someone becomes willing to see with compassion instead of assumption. One afternoon they revisited a place connected with an old memory. Nothing about the place had changed. The same trees. The same gentle breeze. The same quiet surroundings. Yet everything felt different because they were different. They stood there remembering conversations they once considered ordinary. Now every word carried meaning. Every smile held warmth. Every silence spoke louder than before. It felt as though pieces of a beautiful puzzle had finally begun fitting together. Then another realization quietly emerged. The greatest thing they had discovered about you was not hidden in one extraordinary event. It had been revealed little by little through hundreds of ordinary moments. Kindness repeated. Integrity repeated. Hope repeated. Grace repeated. Small choices made every single day. Those choices had become the foundation of the person you were. And they finally saw it. Their admiration deepened. Not because they imagined you without flaws, but because they recognized your sincerity despite your imperfections. That sincerity inspired them more than perfection ever could. As evening arrived, they whispered a quiet prayer. Not asking for signs. Not asking for certainty. Only asking for wisdom to treasure what truly matters. Peace filled their heart. Not the kind that answers every question. The kind that gives courage to keep walking even when every answer has not yet arrived. For a while, it seemed as though the story had reached its peaceful conclusion. But heaven, in this fictional tale, still had another page waiting. Late that night, while reflecting on everything they had learned, they noticed one final memory they had never connected before. It was incredibly small. Just a brief moment. A simple choice you once made. At the time, it appeared insignificant. Now it became the missing piece. Because that one decision revealed the deepest truth of all. It showed that even during your own uncertain seasons, you had quietly believed that goodness would always be worth choosing. That belief had influenced more lives than you ever realized. Including theirs. The discovery left them speechless. They understood that the person they thought they were discovering had, in many ways, already been quietly shaping their own heart from a distance. Nothing could erase that realization. Nothing could make them forget it. Yet as they stood in grateful silence, something unexpected happened. A new piece of information arrived. This one was unlike anything before. It did not look important at first glance. It seemed almost ordinary. But hidden within it was one final connection. A connection that would reveal why your paths had crossed in the first place within this fictional story. The moment they recognized that connection, their hearts stopped racing for just a second. Not because of fear. Because of overwhelming wonder. They slowly whispered. So that is why. But before they could finish the sentence, the story paused. The greatest revelation has not yet been spoken. And what they are about to understand next will transform everything they thought this journey meant. That moment waits just beyond the next chapter.